Hey, Michael, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate it very much.
We're talking about this film, The Journey. It's magnificent. It's in theaters April the 2nd to the 4th and April the 6th. And it's a musical and spiritual journey where folks can take part in this pilgrimage with tenor Andrea Bocelli. Michael, how did you get involved in this, and why did you want to get involved?
Yeah. Well, I met Andrea 5-6 years ago, being a part of a thing called Celebrity Fight Night. That's a whole other story in itself. It's a great organization, raises awareness for Parkinson's. So I found myself in Italy with him and his wife and David Foster and Reba and a lot of people. But I just got a call that they wanted me to be a part of this pilgrimage. And this is a very, very common thing that they do in Europe. Every year a lot of people do it on foot. They walk and they find these places for spiritual enlightenment. They want to ponder the scriptures and on and on. Everybody has their interpretation of what a pilgrimage is. But Andre wanted to take a spiritual one, but he wanted to do it on horseback. So he wanted to ride almost 200 miles for 25 days. And so the catch was, we'd love for you to come and we can make music together, but would you ride a horse with me for 20 miles? So of course I said yes. And, I've ridden horses in the past growing up, but I hadn't ridden in about a decade. So I trained and kind of got familiar with being on a horse again, but I'll have to be honest, I was still sore. The very next day, I looked like I was 105, barely made it to the bathroom. I was hobbling away, but you know what? I wouldn't trade it for anything. We got to see absolutely the most spectacular Italian countryside, riding in the middle of nowhere, and then performing together in a 3,000-year-old Coliseum. I mean, it was incredible. So really great. And I'm excited it's coming out in theaters. And I think it's something else to see. Visually, it's just stunning. It really is.
It really is. What you're talking about, of course, is and I'm going to butcher this because I'm from the South, the Via Francigena, I believe that's how I would pronounce it, at least. Yeah. That's pretty good, I guess. What can folks expect from you in this film in terms of musical performance?
Well, I sing. Obviously, I sing a brand new song called Sing Again that I wrote actually with two of my daughters. That was sort of my post-pandemic song, but it was kind of inspired by The Journey as well. And then I wrote an instrumental called The Journey, which is sort of the theme of the whole thing. And then being able to ride and talk with Andre. I interviewed Andre in a cathedral, got to play this organ that must be, I bet it's at least 1,000 years old, so that was kind of a little highlight.
Wow.
But just be able to talk with him and be able to converse with him and to talk about what's going on in the world. And we all know what the answer is, So in the midst of a very, very difficult time, I think that played into the sort of the talking points. That's not the right phrase, but just conversation of, it's kind of allowed us to sort of maybe reboot and figure out what's really important in life in the midst of a very, very difficult 2 years. And so I feel like the special is very, very timely. And a lot of the music, you probably have a list of the people that are in it. They're amazing singers and performances. And it's just, it was quite the journey, no pun intended. So
when was it filmed?
If I'm not mistaken, it was filmed 2 years ago. So we filmed it in the middle of the pandemic.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So
wow.
Probably, I think it was April or May of 21, if I'm not mistaken. So it's been almost 2 years.
You were talking about traveling the world and traveling in Italy. You just got through traveling to Vietnam for a tour. How does that impact your faith to perform around the world and to hear the same message proclaimed and to proclaim that message?
I think more than anything, it's just it's edifying for me, because sometimes I feel like in Western civilization and being in America, we think everything sort of like evolves around our little world that we have. Everybody says it's a small world. I think it's a big world, and especially when you're flying over Pacific Ocean, there's nothing but ocean forever, to get to the other side of the world. But to hear these people passionately singing their hearts out to God in their language. Matter of fact, it was a cross between Vietnamese and English. I felt like they were singing in tongues there for a minute, But the combo of and it was all just legit. It was just so authentic, and they're singing your songs, and you're going, golly, this is a bit overwhelming. So I kind of feel like I got just as much out of it, if not more, than they did. So very, very encouraging to my faith, for sure.
And you're getting ready to go to Europe, is that correct?
Europe in April, and then South Africa in June. So.
Wow, we just got in the U.S. here. Of course, I don't know if that happened while you were gone, but there was this outbreak, this outpouring, this revival outbreak at Asbury, and it spread to other colleges. And I'm just curious, do you think God is on the move around the world? I think you've experienced that, and you still are experiencing that, aren't you?
I personally think, and I could be wrong, I can't tell you I'm 100% right. I think it's happening. Mm-hmm. I think what we have prayed for so long is actually happening. The world's turned upside down, and then it got turned. What's the opposite of that? it got turned up right.
Yeah.
A bunch of students at Asbury. But I think there's a lot of things at play, and it's not only happening in America. It's happening in France. It's happening in Brazil. I walk into this in Vietnam. I kept hearing this rumble, and I kept thinking there was a soccer game. There's 23,000 people there in this big field, and I kept hearing this rumble, and I kept thinking there's a soccer game going on. Maybe that's what it is. But and there's a white tent over from my dressing room. And wait a minute, the rumble's coming from the tent. So I made my way over to the tent, and in Vietnamese, it said what it was, and then below it in English says the prayer tent. And I opened up the door, and there's a bunch of people in this tent that are going literally on 110 on the prayer mode and singing. And they were praying for what was happening out in the field where we were, So prayer moves things, and so that was encouraging. Yeah, I think the Asbury college campuses, you're hearing all these. I got a video of these students in a cathedral in France that are breaking out in praise and worship. The Jesus Revolution movie coming out, which deeply, deeply impacted my life as a teenager. The Chosen, which is sort of igniting all around the world. There's this resurgence of faith. You just feel like there's a move of God. Something's happening, and I can't believe. I'm so grateful that I'm alive to get to see it.
Forgive me for even prodding on your age, but you were a teenager, you say, during that time?
I was like 12 years old, probably 13 or 14 when I first got that first Maranatha record, and, which was the Everlasting Living Jesus music concert.
Yeah.
The first Maranatha record that came out of Calvary. Yeah. And the Jesus movement literally found its way in my little tiny town of Canova, West Virginia, 5,000 people. While all my buddies were smoking pot and drinking beer, I was in Bible studies every night, singing all these songs from the Maranatha days from Calvary Church, all because of Chuck Smith and him opening up his church to those hippies. And it changed my life. I'm doing this interview with you because of what happened in Southern California.
That's incredible. I don't think I realized that. That's powerful. That you hear of it impacting pastors and so on and so forth, but I don't think I've realized that it impacted Michael W. Smith. So that's awesome. That's awesome. The movie is The Journey, April the 2nd to the 4th and the 6th. It features a host of well-known singers, including Michael W. Smith and tenor Andrea Bocelli, and you'll get to see Michael W. Smith on a horse. Mike, God bless.
All right, thank you. Thanks for the interview. Appreciate it.